You good?
Officially recording, everyone.
See.
You'll have better. You, yes.
Probably. Yeah, other people too.
Thank you for being here. We didn't travel really far.
Have you looked over the general blue stuff all the time? Really quick, but I did raise it, yeah.
We're recording.
Oh, no, it's been going on since August and trust people. I'm interested. I have a federal handwriting that, shop. Since we're in baseball.
Yes, that's good.
Yellow clouds. You already have this in your house and say, well, it's kind of boring. I mean, yeah. I
Yeah, I do that a lot though, so
Oh, okay.
like 3 times should be enough for that to have happened.
Because after you left.
Well,
I'm just barely-
clearly,
A lot of different things.
you got one.
Nice. Email.
It's now Ian.
Okay, it was on the email. It must have
It's
been.
not- it's not Ian.
All right.
He's still gonna be.
She'll just hit me whenever I say something wrong.
You're calling.
Let's go wait to the end of this. See if there's anything. Okay. It is. Me too.
I'm getting ready. Three days a week.
No, you did not. Although they've already.
Hi, our attorney over here.
No. Yeah.
Like a freedom of information.
He's representing you.
I'm doing a very important thing to try to remember how OneNote works. As far as I'm aware, you type at some point.
Person is actually right on it. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, you're so close.
Oh, for like 22.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, so I mean, March. Most of you are just
sail off into the sunset.
Better get done to be over the next
Nisa
one.
goes, no. Nisa goes, no, we're gonna ride you until the rims fall off. The limbs are sparking.
You wanna go out in a flood or in a influenza outbreak?
And
Fire.
then we go over Chick-fil-A.
I know that's right. And it's still. Yes.
I want it to be clear and start up again. And it's just like some place. And it's also for example,
I'm awake today.
Yeah.
works its way. How much copy?
Zero, but my campaign football source is.
Are they supposed to have the units to reattach once they have it?
I don't know.
No, yeah.
We can actually do this, it's just the one.
Ken said gals get it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 3 o'clock. Things done today. Appreciate you being here. I want to first, I want to apologize. My hearing has never been very good. And I managed to perforate the hearing, my eardrum on my this weekend. Feel like I'm in. Hear you. You at me or whatever, or tell Ron will elbow me. And we'll get it done. I can hear, but it's a little bit lower. Of course, when you do those things, you always do it to the only computer you have left. So with that, here, and so what do we start with? Just one.
Joe Citizen, over to Catherine.
Lady Age planner for RMA.
Ross Miller, Deputy County Council.
Aaron Bach, I'm Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Development for the Tulare County RMA.
Also, Kashiwa, Project Planner, RMA.
Mike Washington, Associate Director, RMA. Keith Yonke, Supervisor, Tulare County Environmental.
Tricia Stever Blattler, representing Tulare County Farm Bureau.
Getty. Justin Weindecker, Dairy Farm.
Casey Glenn, Grants and Resources Manager, Tulare County Army. Army.
Colin Bannis, representing permit farming for Jim Farms.
Jim Solomon, representing General Agriculture, Chair.
Ron Thurge and Range.
Co-chair. Vice Chair. Tom Tucker, Activist. I'll make it. All right, thank you very much. And just a reminder, the official recorded minutes are available on the website. And since our meetings are recorded, we don't have to keep the official minutes, but there is activities that you can review. And public comments. We can open the floor now for public comments. If there's somebody here that has an item that's not on the agenda that you'd like to discuss, this would be a non-action item. Anyone? Hearing none? Seeing none? Keep on moving. For zoning ordinance revision update. Well, that must be why.
Right. Yeah. We have Emily.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily Gates from Southern County MMA. Today we're just going to go over a few of the updates for we did come to the last meeting and we talked a bit about and these are some of the updates now taken and the comments we've received since we held the Planning Commission workshop on September 25th. So the purpose of this update is to improve our zoning ordinance to be consistent with our general plan, work plan, and implementation measures. We have a few of our work plan and implementation measures listed here for your reference. So Agriculture 13, the county shall amend the zoning ordinance to provide for agriculture-related energy production industries. Land use 1, the county shall update the zoning ordinance to be consistent with land use standards set forth in the land use element. Land use 3, during the preparation of zoning ordinance and land development regulations, the county shall consider appropriate incentives to encourage smart growth implementation, including but not limited to such factors as infill densification, transportation alternatives, provision of public amenities and commercial standards, and environmental resources management 27. Tulare County shall devise procedures as part of the zoning ordinance update to mitigate significant conflicts arising from incompatible land uses. So here are some of the comments we received at the Planning Commission workshop. This is specifically from the letter submitted by the Farm Bureau. So they requested that the definition of agriculture needs to be expanded from our proposed definition to include activities such as greenhouses, hydroponics, and aquaculture. They also stated that they do not support the ag service establishments becoming by right under 5 acres. And they also did not support the addition of mini storage or language allowing mini storage facilities in the agricultural zones. They recommended that we be more specific in our ag service establishments definition and also define what primarily means, which we'll go over here. A few other comments that we received were to recommend that we include setbacks of permanent plants in our zoning matrix. There were some concerns of the distance that we proposed between human habitation and livestock structures. There was also a request to add a battery storage definition alongside our solar definitions and update our language to remove the slaughter of horses and mules from being an allowed use. Here are the changes we have taken in regards to those comments. So we have removed language regarding mini storage facilities. We have now included permanent plant setbacks in the matrix, which is 10 feet for all permanent plants. We have updated section 2 for our definitions to include battery storage. We have removed language allowing the slaughter of horses and mules and other equine creatures. And our agricultural definition update is now the art or science of cultivating of soil, the growing and harvesting of crops, the rearing and the management of livestock, i.e. husbandry, horticulture, greenhouses, hydroponics, aquaculture, and forestry, and the production and processing of said products for sustaining and maintaining.
Can you source some of that?
Yeah, so the battery storage definition was from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and I'll state the definition right now, is technology that uses batteries to store electrical energy when demand is low and release it when demand is high. We can workshop that a bit if you guys would like. And some new language for in regards to removing the horse and mule slaughter is the raising and slaughter of sheep, goats, swine, bovine animals, and other similarly domesticated quadrupeds, excluding horses, mules, and other animals. If you guys have any adjustments you'd like to make that, no?
I just have a question on the permanent plant setbacks.
Yeah.
10 feet is, some plants aren't wide and some are, very wide. So does it say anything about that it's 10 feet, that the planting doesn't extend at all at any point into that 10-foot setback?
I don't believe it was too specific on that. It was recommending that at least 10 feet be between, be out of the setback.
Okay, somewhere there, if you're trying to get 10 foot back, it has to be 10 foot, not necessarily said where the trees planted,
Right.
Right.
but
Any part of
all
that
the trees can be.
any part of the tree, or whatever.
The canopy. Is that what they mean?
I don't know.
Not
Well,
the foliage, not the trunk.
Yeah, I think there could be a definition. I mean, if this is set up as a matrix, you can have all the setback numbers, but then a clarifier.
And this was setback from what?
What is a setback
The
from?
property line.
From the property line.
Yeah.
Property line.
This is another reference to the comment page we have on the RMA website. If you want to go on there, see all of the changes we made to the zoning ordinance, any comments we made to be sent directly. Yeah, we can open a discussion for any further comments or things that you'd like to see.
Livestock.
Would you like me to restate the definition?
Yes, please.
It has been changed to the raising and slaughter of sheep, goats, swine, bovine animals, and other similarly domesticated quadrupeds, excluding horses, mules, and other animals.
You know, once upon a time, I remember when we were slaughtering ostrich. And, poultry,
Poultry are a
Is that separate?
separate, yes.
so with a larger biped like ostrich be included with the poultry?
We do not have anything specific stating ostriches right now. We do have a poultry section.
Well, I think if we were ever to run into that instance, we would consider it. If we were ever to run into that instance, it would be unique enough that I think we would probably consider it poultry. But if you're saying that we should actually define something for ostriches, I think we could definitely do that. Now, what was the reason we struck the horses and the others?
So California Prop 6 in 1998 was passed restricting the slaughter of horses and mules and other equine animals. And we did not update our zoning ordinance until now to finally include that language or exclude.
Yeah, and if you could think of other instances that we're not thinking about besides ostriches, I'm not thinking of anything myself, but that would,
It didn't last very long, it wouldn't, but,
The only place I think of, there's a commercial operation in Buellton area in Santa Barbara County, the emus.
right.
That's about the only one I can think of in California.
they have one in
Probably-
Kings, they have one in Kings County.
Probably somewhere in Southern
By the
California.
prison actually.
Yeah.
I have a question. On this setback, you got 10 feet up there, but as I read down here, it's kind of hard for me because I don't have good idea. It's got a rear yard setback, side yard setback, a front yard setback. Now, front yard, side yard, back. Why is it 25 feet on a backyard, but 10 feet on a side yard? That doesn't, I mean,
You're talking from a house, from a residence?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are our standards. They pretty kind of typical standards for access, movement around a residence. So we're not changing those. So that's why those, and then they were mostly for emergency vehicles, for making sure that it's also a visual thing. But they've kind of been part of the history of California. If you read most jurisdictions, setbacks, ours are pretty consistent with them as far as setback standards.
okay. I don't, if you got, I mean,
And that setback's for property line. Yeah, that's not setbacks from crops or anything.
Okay,
That's
so
setbacks
the
from property.
setback,
For a resident.
the setback behind,
So behind
the
the
property
house.
line. This rear yard setback is supposed to be 25 feet from a property line, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
the back of the house would be 25 foot, minimum of 25 feet away from the property line boundary.
What if the property line boundary is 400 feet behind the house?
You made the setback. You only need to be 25, a minimum of 25 feet.
No, yeah, not a,
You could have a maximum of however far you want to be. It's just a minimum setback. Most of these really, for the most part, this will be like if people carving out home site parcels and things like that. It's from your property line. It's not, yeah.
So what was the rationale that we came up with for the 40-foot between habitation and
Both
livestock
Kings
facilities?
Both Kings County and Fresno County both have a 40-foot distance between human habitation and livestock.
And it was 100.
We have 40 feet in most of our zones, and one of our zones that just reached the 80s. In one zone was 100 feet, and so we're just bringing it down, making it more consistent.
In those places where we have like rural residential and 5-acre ranchette properties, I know at the planning commission workshop, board member Renee spoke about this because she's in kind of a ranchette neighborhood. And oftentimes some of those suburban homeowners will have a lot more animal units on their property than maybe is wise. So I don't know if going from 100 feet down to 40 feet makes sense in terms of if we're trying to regulate, because we're talking about the habitation, human habitation next to, I can't read any of that either, pen, coop, stable, barn, corral, right? We're talking about the distance between like a human structure, a residential structure, and where livestock can be housed.
But again, this was just for one of our zones, the AE zone,
Just the AE.
the AE10, the AE20, they all have 40 feet. So.
In the bigger zones, it's probably not a big deal. It's in those little zones, right? Where people got 1 acre in the country and 40 llamas living with them. And the next neighbor over says there's nothing but manure wall to wall because they shouldn't have 40 llamas. And they're only now 40 feet from that if they build their house next door.
Most of this is going to apply to new housing, isn't it? But you've got a lot of existing. stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it will be grandfathered
Doesn't apply to.
Right, this will all be new moving forward. Unless somebody goes in for a building permit or some change of something, gets a use permit or something like that, then they'll lose their grandfathering status and then the new rules would apply.
Everything in black already existed in the ordinance. Red is what you're suggesting as a modification, right?
Parcel size 5 acres, so it's decent size.
Yeah, for the most part, but the animal unit issue and the fact that we deal with some use permits coming in
Right.
has been the way we've brought people
Part of the
into
council
compliance.
was before, up was a tree, shrub, and vine setback before.
It was already 10 feet. This
But
is
it's in red
including it
because-
within the matrix. Showing that as a new change from the previous matrix we presented.
But it was in the old ordinance.
Correct. It's the same.
So when you see the minimum parcel size, when you mentioned 5 acres, there will be a lot of parcels that are AE, but they're not 5 acres. Because there's a lot of that out there. You'll see that with all of the zoning
Yeah.
designations. What the minimum parcel size is, because there was blanket back in the late 70s, they kind of blanket zoned the AEs in different areas, and they mismatched a lot of them. So you'll see a lot of parcels that don't meet the minimum, but so when we look at that, and they're all grandfathered in, but when we look at parcel splits, we look at the minimum. So if someone has, there might be a 15-acre parcel in an 80-20, and we find it compliant because it was existing as a 15-acre parcel when it was applied, but they can't now split it into 2 7-acre parcels or 3 5-acre parcels because it's 80-20 zone. So it doesn't mean the smaller parcels don't exist in that zone.
Now, the home site parcel ordinance, though, that was adopted a few years ago, does allow them to split off just one time a parcel for the home site for like a financing piece or some other reason of that nature.
Yeah.
But it can't actually create another substandard parcel that's smaller than the zone it's in.
Right.
Is that right?
And we handle those through variances sometimes, like especially if like a whole neighborhood is 2-acre sites and somebody wants a home site that does create something below that, as long as it's within that nature of that community. But you know, if it's a 40-acre parcel in 80/40s or 30-acre parcel in 80/40s, it's tougher.
Structure for habitation. What does that exactly mean? Does that
For the
include?
livestock,
No, I'm
You're
talking
talking
about
about human habitation.
human habitation, structure for human habitation.
So manufactured homes
Is that a house or somebody's got an office or
or an RV.
or shop or?
No RVs. Not yet, at least. The state hasn't said yes to that. Absolutely yet. But yeah, so no tents, no, I mean, basically we're stopping people from camping. We're stopping people from living in RVs, and those are all public health code things. So yeah, the bathroom, kitchen, the minimum things for habitation.
Tiny homes?
But if it's permanent and right, you know.
Mobile
And
units.
mobile homes.
Yeah. Mobile
So-
homes.
Which we could see in a farm worker scenario.
So yeah, we haven't done a tiny home ordinance, so but they are allowed in mobile home parks. So
So that definition is for where people live. It's not where someone might work or like if there's on the farm, there's an office and the milking barn. Obviously you're working, but it's not human adaptation.
But if I'm on a county island in town on an old A spot, I can move my stable 60 feet closer to my neighbor.
Well, in the AE, well, what zone did you say?
An AE,
Yeah, if it's just AE, according to this,
I think that was the concern of our other board member that before on the smaller parcels with 100-foot back kind of limited where you can put stuff on the property that might affect neighboring.
there is the
Split. A house over here that's got a 10-foot setback. On the other parcel, I said I want to put a house. I want to put I have to stay 40 feet away from their house. I'd have to be within 30 feet back from their house. Is that what that means?
yeah, I mean,
sneeze too.
I have to be 30 feet back from my house and 30 feet back from their house.
well, I think it's 40.
Yeah, it's 40 to the 10-foot setback. 10-foot setback, is that 30 feet from the property line or from the habitation?
It's from the habitation. So you could be 10 feet away from the property line back towards the back.
Your setback,
Talking acres.
setback for the house is 10 feet from the side.
Right.
And I think we'll get into this in another part of this dialogue about service establishments, but that's where at a lot of planning commission hearings, we see these non-compliant or we're cleaning up a violation because someone has a ag service establishment where they have a house and they have an office and they're parking, you know, trucks, and maybe they store porta potties, or they have, you know, an FLC license and run a farm labor company, but they're doing it all out of like some little 5-acre parcel, and, you know, they become non-compliant or they get caught for not having the proper permits. And you've got the whole combination of this. You've got residential, they might have livestock, they might have noise that they're making at times of the day that the neighborhood doesn't like, but it's all fairly allowed under their ag service establishment definition. I think that's one of the common places we wanted to see that language tightened and cleaned up for this very reason. I know Farm Bureau gets the calls when, you know, the unhappy neighbor is like, I'm next to a well company, the guy lives here, and he's now running a pump company out of his home, and he goes out at 4 a.m. and starts up 14 diesel trucks, and they sit there and idle for 30 minutes, and I'm next door and don't want that noise.
Yes.
Those are the things we tend to hear about when these ag service establishment issues arise. You probably hear about them too.
Yeah, I think I was told by that person was the fleas of 1,000 camels would infest my armpits. Yeah, that I think I know.
That's what season one, dude.
Yes. But in that, I mean, that's the thing about having the ag county. It's and we had that conversation at the planning commission. Those things do right now require use permits, right? So the way we could do this is to just add our conditions by ordinance for those projects, so they don't have to go through the discretionary process, because they do get approved. Right. So we could do design development standards on them that are just the exact same conditions they would have got from the planning commission, and we could do that administratively and still have all the enforcement mechanisms in there. So that I mean, same with the 100-foot setback versus 40-foot setback. We could put some standards in there, development standards, design standards that would make it administrative and not have to go through discretionary processes.
Question.
Yes.
If somebody splits off a 5-acre parcel, they want to build a house, and they squeeze their house as close as they can, 10 feet from this, and so, but their side is up, their side is close to the property line to their neighbor. So now somebody can have livestock, whatever, within 10 feet of their home, right? Within 10 feet of the property line. So however far the setback for the house is from the property line, then can they have?
No, it's got to be 40
feet, but that's not from the back. What if it's from the side?
That's in all directions.
It's in all, okay.
Side 10 feet.
So setback from the property line. Oh, you're talking about setback from livestock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 40 feet no matter what. Okay. Good. Less complaints coming our way.
So you think.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they'll comply with it, but.
And honestly, that's not one of the complaints we hear about often. In fact, today we're having a discussion about Matheny tract annexing at some point in the future. And the one thing that stops them from wanting to annex is they want to keep their livestock, you know, and not have the city rules applied to them, you know, so.
Service establishments. You could find the word primarily. Originally thought maybe 51% of the for primarily use. You can think about that one a bit more.
Just how would you define 51%?
Well, so as of right now, agricultural service establishments are defined as primarily engaged in performing agricultural, animal husbandry services or horticultural services to farmers or farm-related activities in planting, harvesting, storage, hauling, and repair maintenance. And that primarily right there, since we're trying to define what can be an ag service establishment. We're just trying to, in that list that I just said, how much of the property needs to be in there.
So you're talking about coverage area, so like 50, more than half of the property is involved in
Yes.
agriculture. But if you're putting a facility in, then it wouldn't necessarily, the footprint wouldn't necessarily, if you've got 10 or 20 acres, the footprint wouldn't necessarily cover 20 acres. It might be small amount, but maybe the rest of it's an ag, another ag, like crops or something like that.
Well, I guess I have maybe a little different take on the percentages in that. What percent of the business applies to ag?
Right.
You know,
That's what.
Right, that's why I'm
You get a-
questioning how you define it.
you get a guy, he comes in and he's selling 10% of his business, is selling packing boxes, for grapes. But then the other 90% of his business, be located anywhere, it's not really benefiting ag, it's just benefiting the business person.
So that's typically how we've interpreted it previously. The primary was the business. I mean, we've never gone so far as to dig into anybody's accounts. Gotten pretty close before, but the subpoenaing people, but so that's typically how we've done it. So, I mean, we're just trying to put our interpretation on paper. So whatever that becomes isn't such a, it's been a big source of contention because there are people out, there's a big source of contention because we get people who are doing mechanic work for farmers and then half their other business is to the general public. And then so we have to, as far as the enforcement side, beyond those type of people and even push them into ag service permits. So as we work on this, it's just, it might be something different within a few weeks, but we're just looking for feedback on what we're suggesting right now.
Something like that, how do you define primarily? Is there more, stuff?
Yeah,
compared to
it
the
gets
public?
really tough. We had one case where there was, somebody was a mechanic for emergency vehicles. And that was the best location for them as far as their proximity to the foothills to fight fires. So, but they were also doing at least some tree cutting from their facility. But the mechanic themselves was doing probably more than 50% public mechanics work. So, again, until we get into someone's bank accounts, and we've gone so far as to ask for receipts, invoices to see what they were doing. But yeah, it's got to be ag related. So we've been pretty good about that, but it'd be nice to have a pretty hard line definition out there.
Is there any evaluation on what the ag services impact is to the surrounding agriculture?
Not so much the surrounding agriculture. It's like Tricia was saying, it's more the impacts to the surrounding neighbors and some of the more residential places that have become more residential around the cities, where people do have businesses that are ag related. Again, we want to foster the ag commercial businesses without making them go into commercial zones. But we have not had real big complaints from surrounding farmers because they do realize the business needs of having those type of services.
Every time we put an agricultural definition up, we want to put art or science, because I've seen some people farming with no science or art. Maybe it's just cultivating the soil, just crops and management livestock.
we can update the definition to
Yeah,
reflect art and science.
I know Webster's, Google, and all of like put that art and science in there, but I'll admit, there's science and there's art, but I'm not gonna find them to have either.
It's just dumb luck.
Those are most of our list of what is under agriculture. So if we're thinking agricultural service establishments, this is typically what we're going to be referencing. So again, if you have any other specific fields that you think we might need to add language, that would be appreciated.
So do we consider poultry as livestock? Or was even poultry out? Agriculture.
We can add poultry specifically.
This again,
But is poultry part of the livestock?
comes under livestock
I assume it would be.
definitions.
Isn't there just a standard definition from like CDFA that we could just,
Yeah, pretty much.
instead of trying to reinvent the definition? Because I'm sure we're all gonna, in 3 months, go, oh, we didn't think of that.
So, crickets, how about?
Yeah, people do that.
Worms, worm farm.
Permaculture,
Very beneficial.
Crickets.
integrated pest management.
That cricket farm in the farmers.
West Bassett had one for years.
That's.
It's closed.
CGFA calls Texas fish.
Like,
Oh, I think they do commercial, so, yeah, for bees.
So, yeah, we'll look into that a little bit better, and get back to you on that one. So in the essence of time, did you want to move on?
So Aaron, what do you guys want from Ag Advisory?
If you could look at the website and our changes that we did make, we'll incorporate what we discussed today back onto that website. But if you want to verify and validate what we're saying or add more comments, that would be the best thing at this point. And then we'll return to you after we meet with the Farm Bureau. We'll have another workshop with the Planning Commission, and then we'll return to you with where we're at that point. And I think hopefully at that point, we're pretty close to a decision. Probably end up going back to the Farm Bureau in another workshop, but pretty close to going to the Planning Commission. I mean, we're not making huge changes. Generally, we're clarifying a lot of things, and a lot of stuff is already in existence, and we've been left to our own to define things. So hopefully we just tighten that up. But again, we're open to anybody's comments on this. We're not the agricultural experts here, so we definitely will consider anything that we're asked to look at.
The updates go live.
The updates themselves, like from this meeting.
You posted that.
Yeah, when was the update?
We posted that one right before Planning Commission. After this meeting, we're going to be updating it again. We're hoping to include both a red line version and a clean version.
Is it possible to be updated date?
Sure, I can
Yeah,
update it,
Because
yeah.
I was looking and I'm like, I'm not sure if this is
And the
the pre-25th version or not.
versions.
Wait,
Yeah.
just have, you know, if you're looking at it online,
Mhm.
and you could tell what's been updated.
Yeah, I looked through the first couple pages. Wasn't sure.
Sure. Yeah, we'll make sure that you can also access any of the older versions of the drafts as well.
I suggest we leave it on the agenda for next meeting. That individuals take what we've heard in here today, spend some time on the website. We'll keep it on the agenda if you want to bring something to the committee that certainly you can comment individually on the website, but if you feel like we need to do something as a committee, we'll bring your thoughts to the next meeting. And we can either take a decision that we want to do something as Ag Advisory, I'm sure once it starts going to the board of supervisors for approval, you know, we will get our support.
Okay. And like I said, we'll workshop this through the planning commission some more. So there'll be lots of opportunities to narrow it down to work for everybody, I think.
Okay. And what do you think your timeline is on this?
I'm hoping, I was hoping to do the whole code over the course of a year. So that's 5 different sections really. So I was hoping to I knew this would be probably the hardest one. And we've done most of residential. So I was hoping to finish this out in 6 months from the time we started. So probably another 2 to 3 months.
Any other questions or discussions on this agenda item? We need any kind of action on it other than what we just discussed. The action items would be at the next meeting. RPLP.
Well, the first one is the discussion about the letter that was received from the farmers.
All right. So we recently, last year or the middle of this year, have been asked by one of our members to kind of look over some scoring that went through the RBLP and give our opinion on it. And during that review process, it kind of came to our attention that it's kind of out of date. Unfortunately, with Sigma and some of the other factors that hit farmland, we feel it needs to be updated to really reflect how we should be ranking these lands for either conservation or, development. That's kind of it in a nutshell. Their water is very little in the score. And, there's basically, we have those bullet points there, kind of highlighting where we think we should probably take a look at reweighting things. So it'll better, really for planning purposes, better assist people in determining should the stay longer.
I believe the chair asks me to speak.
Everybody should have a copy of the letter that Farm Bureau and Land Use Committee put together for some other folks participating. And as I understand from RMA staff, discussion on this, we can go over the bullet points that we have here. I think the intent is that we take this to more of a work group, a subcommittee, where we can actually hammer out the revisions that needs to be in the RBLP. I think this document certainly points out some real issues as it is today. And particularly when you look at the decisions that are going to be made as Sigma comes into effect, and we already see what's happening. Ag land values, the changes that are.
So there's an action item as number 6 on the agenda to form a subcommittee to review and make recommendations on the RBLP that would be making recommendations back to this body. And with an action item to nominate and approve subcommittee members. So members would be of the Ag Advisory Committee. The subcommittee meetings will be subject to the Brown Act, which means they'll be agendized and noticed and open to the public, as well as recorded meetings.
Okay, and what's the maximum number voting members can we have?
There's no real maximum because it's gonna be open and public and everything, and it's gonna report back to this body. So as many as you want, basically.
When you say nominate, you mean appointed by the chair, right?
I mean, that's not quite the democratic process, but.
I certainly want to see Ian on that committee. So you're nominating yourself. Sure. Anyone? Ron, are you interested in it?
Oh, I'll do it.
Okay. Who else do we have? Like a self-nominations are open?
I'll take it.
Vincent? Who else has? This is probably going to be, we're looking at probably a six-month commitment. And what I was proposing is that we would meet on the off Wednesday. In other words, same time frame, the opposite month that we're not meeting this committee. That'll tie you up once a month. And the idea is to come back and report back to this committee what we've gotten done during that time frame. Justin? Anyone else? Lisa, can you work with that group?
I guess I'm just kidding. Yeah. You wouldn't want to meet the third Wednesday of December. It would be the third Wednesday of February would be the next off.
Oh, boy, that's a long ways off, isn't it?
It sure is. It's fine with me though. 18th. December, it would be December 18th or February 12th, unless you wanted to pick a different date for your first, which is farm show.
And why would we not want to meet on December 18th?
I'm sorry, December, it would be February 19th. We certainly can. Probably a pretty quiet week.
Works for me.
They're working quiet.
Work for everybody?
Yeah, the last Friday
So let's get started on the 18th.
Okay.
of December.
Yeah.
Same time, 3 o'clock.
I didn't get that comment.
Same time.
Same time,
Same time, yeah.
3 o'clock.
If that works, yes. All right, so I think we have to take that as an official action item. I'll take a motion that we have a subcommittee, with membership of Ian, Ron, Vincent, myself, and Justin. Meet every other month for the next 6 months, working with RMA staff to review the RVLP and assist in the development of our update. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. The move and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have an official subcommittee.
Just ask procedurally a quick question.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
So does RVLP, is it treated in the general plan? I would point this at maybe Aaron or Michael. Is the RVLP a governance document that's part of the zoning process, or like does it get amended and updated as a standalone document?
Standalone.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be a separate action.
It'll
And
be a general plan amendment.
it would be an amendment to the general plan if we alter or modify the RVLP. Okay, so it goes to the board of, goes to the planning commission or board of soups?
Recommendation. Planning commission make recommendations.
To board of soups, and board of soups has to adopt those changes.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll just offer clarification. This letter has probably been kind of on the tip of Farm Bureau's tongue for a decade, as Sigma has been around for a decade. We've been recognizing the water conversation piece as maybe being an area where this is really not well, represented in the RVLP process. But in general, This is the same dead horse we've been riding for 20 odd years around how ag service establishments and by right and by variance have been able to allow folks to get a lot of things into ag zones that didn't require a zone change. Because the RVLP is only triggered by a zone change. And there oftentimes, been a need for, Farm Bureau has asked county staff to perform an RVLP even when it's not required, because it's one of the more fundamental, objective ways to look at a project.
But it's not designed for a project.
It's not.
It's not a project review.
It's not.
It's designed for two things. It's for a zone change, potential zone change.
Right.
And then it's also designed for sizing of agricultural parcels.
Right.
Where 80/40 should be compared to 80.
That's great if we had consistent sizing in parcels, but we have all these overlying parcel zones from 40 odd years ago that don't consistently provide that piece of the puzzle either. And I'm just saying, there's a lot of times when both our organization, as well as I think your planners, benefit from walking through some of this exercise. I'm just saying, we'd like to continue to see this document be robust and have rigor and be able to stand up to scrutiny, and it also needs to be modernized. So I think that's some of the reason Farm Bureau has brought this forward.
And I think it also would bear some discussion policy-wise with RMA. If we make the RVLP more technical and more robust technically, how do we get the expertise in RMA to apply it to the project review? Those tools available, and are the personnel available that can?
Well, honestly, we don't know yet because we haven't seen what you're presenting. Right now, our VLP is intended as a desktop type research or review. So I do believe we were trying to be as technologically advanced as we could when 2012, when the last general plan was updated, and those websites obviously have changed through time. But I think the planning staff has caught up. We do use the more advanced websites as we sit today, but it's really what you're going to ask for. And that would really, depending on what you ask for, I can tell you ultimately, do we have the staff that can handle that right now? But with that, all the technology out there as far as websites and everything else, I think that's there and the interpretation of it. I mean, what I wouldn't want to get into a situation where somebody has to run to a consultant engineer every time they want to have a zone change. Hopefully whatever we create here, or whatever the board ultimately creates, is good with our staff or how we can operate.
I think you can, one is you define the changes that you'd like to see and make a recommendation. But along with that is the way that it's analyzed, the process, the planners would do, the tools that they would use to do the scoring.
Right. Are we going to be able to basically, because as mentioned, sometimes tools, website changes and name changes, are we going to be able to address that so we don't have to wait another 10, 20 years to?
And I think we could write that language in there. We know those websites don't exist anymore, so we use other websites that listed on the RVLP right now. But it would be nice to be able to do that administratively without having to do a general plan amendment to change which website we're looking at. And we can do that.
Any other questions on the RVLP at this time? Okay, we're going to move forward. Other business, information items on staff. Got it. Committee members. Items committee members want to bring up for future discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Can't take action today, but we can certainly. Sure. Any items? Seeing none? Committee member updates. For future agenda items, I think we got plenty on our plate for right now. These two voting change are good. I urge everyone to please take time to go on and look at the changes and apply your expertise, your point of view to it, and bring questions forward next week or next meeting, which will be next week.
January 15th, 2025.
So not only just the changes, when you're reviewing the document, is if there's, because Emily and staff have defined what the changes, proposed changes are, but if you see something else in there that says this should be changed too, or this should be revised, include that, because now it's.
Okay. Like motion to adjourn.
Jim, real quick, Carnshot, never say your last name, Grandpapa is moving on to a new role in UCCE, and we will have a new county director, I think around February. Carnshot will stay on until March or April to transition the role, but whenever procedurally you want to change that person's title or name, we'll make sure you guys hear about it, but I know she is.
You know who the ECD is?
I have a name, but I don't recognize, don't know who it is, but I can tell you after you during the meeting if that's helpful. I'm sure you know.
I haven't heard that part of the room yet.
Like I said, it wasn't a name I knew.
Yeah.
Leonel Jimenez, if I'm saying that right, Leonel, Leonel Jimenez. Leonel Jimenez will be the new director for Tulare, Kings, and Kern. And will start their position February 3rd.
God bless them, I did 2/3 of it.
Sounds like Lionel.
Lionel would have an I in it, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it could be something similar to that, yes. That's just Lionel has an eyeball in it, so.
We are still recording.
Well, I'll tell you this, as I'm researching history, a lot of names get misspelled that whole person.
All right, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Moved. Second. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Now to the side.